In 2010, the New Zealand Defence Force declassified thousands of pages of secret UFO files. They immediately followed this release by closing their investigation desk, declaring that the military would no longer research or respond to unidentified sightings. While the military withdrew, the sightings continued. In 2011, a family in Hawera filmed a pyramid-shaped object, and in 2024, a driver in Marlborough recorded 3 lights dancing in the eastern sky. Reminders that the phenomenon didn't vanish just because the government stopped looking. These anomalies have been a fixture of the New Zealand sky since long before the Cold War. In fact, reports of strange aerial activity date back decades before human flight was common in the region. In 1909, a wave of airship sightings swept the country. From Gore to Auckland, hundreds of people described moving lights and figures in the sky. Because the Wright brothers had only flown 6 years prior, witnesses reached for the only logical comparison: the massive, lighter-than-air dirigibles being tested in Europe. By 1952, the geopolitical landscape had shifted. The Royal New Zealand Air Force began maintaining dedicated files on these sightings as matters of national security and aerospace integrity, fearing that unidentified objects might represent foreign military hardware testing their defenses. Over the next 50 years, the military managed the issue through shifting nomenclature. They moved from the popular flying saucer to the more clinical unidentified flying object, then unidentified aerial sighting, and eventually unidentified aerial phenomenon. This bureaucratic evolution was a deliberate effort to separate the military's interest from the sensationalism of civilian clubs. They changed the label on the filing cabinet, but the raw dayvet in the sky remained as anomalous as ever. In September 1969, the phenomenon moved from a light in the sky to a physical event on a farm in Nagoya. This became one of the most significant trace evidence cases in New Zealand's history. A farmer discovered a 12-meter-wide circle of dead, bleached manuka scrub. The tough brush had been violently flattened and blown outward from the center, as if subjected to an intense, localized downward blast. Investigators found 3 deep, V-shaped impressions inside the circle, suggesting a heavy, tripod-mounted craft. Technical analysis indicated 20 tons of downward force created the indentations. Researchers also found radiation traces, and the bleached leaves defied known botanical diseases. These mechanical and chemical traces stood in direct opposition to the military's preferred explanations. High-intensity physical damage on this scale is not characteristic of natural atmospheric phenomena or misidentified stars. The Nagoya incident provided a physical signature of a heavy, highly energetic craft. It proved that at least some reports in the archives were backed by undeniable ground-level evidence that the government could not explain away. The ultimate escalation occurred in December 1978 off the Kaikoura coast. For the first time, multiple independent sensors confirmed a single high-speed target. It began with a Safe Air cargo flight crew reporting bright lights that parallel-tracked their aircraft. These experienced pilots described the objects moving in coordination with their flight path. A television news crew subsequently joined a cargo flight on December 30th and captured the objects on 16mm color film. The footage shows brilliant lights that oscillate and change in size while maintaining a fixed distance from the plane. While the crew filmed, Wellington air traffic controllers tracked the same targets on radar. They recorded solid returns, performing maneuvers exceeding 10,000 miles per hour, a velocity impossible for any aircraft at the time. Following the release of the news crew's footage, the government tasked the Department of Scientific and Industrial Research with an official explanation. They concluded the lights were likely Japanese squid boats or atmospheric ducting creating false echoes. But the data contradicts this. A stationary boat cannot produce a radar return tracking an aircraft at 5-digit speeds. Independent optical physicists also challenged the idea that the crew had simply filmed the planet Venus. Their analysis of the film showed the objects were below the horizon and exhibited movement that did not match planetary rotation. When human eyes, color film cameras, and military-grade radar all confirm the same target, dismissing the event as a weather anomaly requires actively ignoring the sensors. Unable to solve high-profile cases like Kaikoura and unwilling to fund a permanent research unit, the New Zealand Defence Force eventually chose to opt out of the conversation. In 2010, they declassified their history, but ensured the most sensitive details remained protected. Under privacy laws, The original, unredacted witness reports are sealed in the National Archives until at least the year 2050. With the military no longer collecting data, civilian research groups have stepped into the void. These organizations now act as the primary investigators for the New Zealand public, applying scientific rigor to new reports. Today's sky is significantly more crowded than it was in 1952. Trackers must now filter out a constant stream of commercial drones, weather balloons, and the predictable flaring of low-orbit satellite arrays. To isolate a true anomaly, investigators look for flight characteristics, silent hovering, instantaneous acceleration, and sharp, non-ballistic angles that are impossible for conventional aircraft. The government may have locked its historical baseline in a vault for the next few decades, but the public hasn't stopped reporting what they see. An anomaly doesn't cease to exist just because an institution decides it's no longer their responsibility to look.